Plume was still shooting in the air after a chemical fire 1 week ago. Martha, this is such a disaster. Schools in Rockdale County this week are now virtual. You know, in 2004, when I was at WSB in Channel 2, I covered that initial one, and it was a mess then, forcing thousands of people to evacuate, and we haven't learned anything from this.
No, we haven't learned anything. These types of chemicals that they work with are very volatile, and if they're not handled right, you're going to have the tragedy that you've just seen. I mean, we dealt with it in Gainesville a few years ago, where but it was a freezer plant that had a leak, and a lot of problems happened related to that. So look, schools are going to be out. It's going to be virtual this week. It is just horrible. So it's got to be dealt with now. We cannot. I'm not opposed to people being capitalists and producing these kinds of chemicals and making these kinds of products, but they've got to be 100% safe in how they do it.
Jeff Theron, Congressman Hank Johnson said that there have been several unreported incidents from the company, and that BioLab has a history of being cited and not complying with regulations and not doing the right thing.
Yeah, you know, Congressman Johnson was pretty vocal this week in his disappointment and outrage in what happened. And then, you know, you also saw a lot of local leaders come out and call for the plant to be closed. And that's their First Amendment right. I mean, that's what, you know, some politicians have done. But, you know, I took a moment to really talk to a lot of folks on the ground. And I want to start off by praising all the women and men that have kind of really come together to mitigate this emergency. It's a disaster. And I think the company, it feels terrible. They feel really, really bad, I mean, about what happened. And I think that Chairman and CEO Oz Nesbitt, Rockdale County, has been leading this effort. He is immediately on the site to try to corral everyone. This is going to be a multi-jurisdictional sort of relief package. And so I think that right now, Lori, when you really look at it, public safety and public health has got to be paramount. Then you got to make sure that the community feels very safe and knowing going forward. And then it's going to be really left up to BioLab, which I know they're going to do, is that to be very transparent about the next steps and to be open. They've been working in coordination with the fire chief and updating the public. And so it's happened. Again, it's a disaster. It should not happen. I know the company and the residents feel very, very bad about what is going on. So you'll see this continue to evolve. But ultimately, I think that we got to all come together as good neighbors again to really fight this crisis.
Well, you're being very nice, but how many times are businesses going to have to close in that area? Schools, people having to shelter in place. I mean, what can be done?
Well, you're making a very good point, and yeah, I'll praise Hank Johnson. That's a rarity for me, but he did the right thing. But I'm going to criticize Oz Nesbitt, who's the chairman of the county commission in BioLab. We're all supposed to be for transparency here, and the first couple days, the company just issued a terse statement that meant nothing, and then you couldn't hear anything. Even the AJC was frustrated in trying to get some information out of this. And 4 fires in 20 years. This is a terrible record. I want to hear more from the company, but I'm in favor of shutting it down if they don't explain more what they're doing to remediate this.
Kathy.
Well, you said it, 4 fires in 20 years. I think it's time for them to go. They are way too close to an urban area where there's a high population. I don't know if it's better to put them in a rural area where there's not. I don't know who would want them. Right. But at this point, I think they have got to shut down from where they are. We can't continue to. And we've had 20 years. That's a whole generation that's getting exposed multiple times to this toxic stuff.
Well, I'll just remind you all, and I'm not disagreeing, but you know, there are a lot of jobs there, right? And what's got to be focused on, again, is the community, public safety, public health. They need to know that it's safe to go outside to make sure that there's a plan in place. But when you start talking about shutting down companies, you know, there are a lot of women and men who depend on this company to feed their families. And so I know the company has got to think about, you know, what do you do in this time of distress? It was reported that those folks are going to get paid.
Well, you got to do the right thing. You got to follow OSHA regulations.
About the jobs. Where's the plan?
And where are the OSHA regulations and following and reporting incidents and doing the right thing? That's
I mean, look, this is definitely all fair, but I just want to make that.
Okay, I want to move on to some politics because this week Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D.